The music was still playing when Elwyn Ashgrove's knees gave out. She felt it coming. The tremor climbing her legs, the blur closing in from the edges of her vision, the grand hall tilting like a sinking ship. 500 wolves surrounded her in silk and velvet, their laughter drowning out the string quartet. She reached for something solid. Her fingers caught nothing but air. The marble hit her shoulder, then her temple. Then, everything went silent. Not a single hand reached for her. Hundreds of wolves, and not one. She knew why. 3 days earlier, she'd wandered where she wasn't welcome. A wrong turn in Ashenmore Manor, searching for the wine cellar during a pre-mating visit, meant to welcome her into the Draith family. Instead, she found a staircase spiraling into cold stone and silence, a corridor of iron cages. The smell struck her first. Fear, unwashed skin, something chemical and wrong. Then the sounds, whimpering, the scratch of nails on metal. Omegas. At least a dozen, hollow-eyed and trembling, their wolves suppressed beyond shifting. And at the far end, a desk holding a leather-bound ledger in Corvin's own handwriting. Names, dates, prices, buyers. He was trafficking them, border pack Omegas, runaways, orphans, anyone who wouldn't be missed, sold like livestock. When she confronted him, voice breaking, hands shaking, Corvin had tilted his head the way a wolf studies cornered prey. "You were never meant to see that, little one. Forget it. Mate me at the ball. Live a comfortable life." "And if I can't forget?" He didn't answer. He only smiled. The same smile he'd used when he first courted her. And the next morning, her food stopped. Her door was locked. For 3 days. Water and broth laced with something that pushed her wolf into silence until Elowen could barely feel her own pulse. They dressed her on the 3rd morning, painted her hollow cheeks, cinched her gown to hide what hunger had carved away, and brought her to the mating ball like a gift wrapped in silk and starvation. "Smile," Corvin whispered at the entrance, fingers bruising her arm. "Tonight you become mine. Look worthy of it." She'd smiled. She'd walked. 11 minutes later, her body surrendered what her spirit wouldn't, and the floor rushed up, and the world went black, and her last thought was a single, bitter truth. "No one is coming for me." The murmurs reached her before consciousness did. Then warmth. Not cold marble, but arms. Someone lifting her with a care that made no sense in a room full of predators. "Set her down." Corvin's voice, sharp, territorial. "She's my betrothed. I'll handle this. You'll step back." A different voice, deep, unhurried, carrying the kind of authority that doesn't need volume. "Now." The arms tightened around her, not painfully, protectively. Elowen forced her eyes open and through the blur found a jaw carved from granite, dark hair falling past the collar, and eyes like a winter storm. Pale silver, almost white, locked on Corvin with an expression that could freeze fire. She collapsed from hunger at a banquet hall. The voice continued, and Elowen felt it vibrate through his chest against her cheek. "Wearing your courtship mark, scented with moon's bane." Each word fell like a verdict. What kind of alpha lets his Omega starve? Silence. The entire hall, perfectly still. "She's ill." Corvin recovered quickly, smoothing his voice into concern. "A nervous condition, the excitement of the ceremony." "She's malnourished. I can feel her bones through silk." The man holding her hadn't moved, hadn't lowered her, hadn't broken his gaze from Corvin. "I'm taking her to my quarters. You'll send a physician and food. And if anyone follows who isn't carrying either, I'll treat it as a challenge." A challenge. From an alpha king, those words meant one thing: follow me and die. Corvin's face cycled through fury, calculation, and finally a thin, venomous smile. "Of course, Your Majesty. I only want what's best for my future mate." "Then you should have fed her." He carried her through the parting crowd. Elowen tried to speak, to make sense of what was happening, but her body had nothing left. The last thing she registered before the dark pulled her under again was a scent. Pine, iron, and something wild, and a heartbeat beneath her ear, steady as a war drum. The name reached her last, whispered through the crowd like a prayer or a warning. Soren Vale, Alpha King of Shadowmere, ruler of the Northern Territories. And the man Corvin's father cursed as the enemy at every pack gathering she'd ever attended. She'd fainted from hunger at the mating ball. The Alpha King had lifted her from the floor, and he hadn't let go. Whether that made her rescued or claimed, Elwyn couldn't yet tell. She woke to firelight and the smell of roasted meat. The room was vast, vaulted stone ceilings, tapestries of wolves running beneath silver moons, a hearth wide enough to stand in. On a table beside the bed, bread, cold venison, cheese, dried fruit, broth, and water. More food than she'd seen in a week. She was reaching for the bread when a voice stopped her. Slowly. Your stomach won't handle much after 3 days empty. Elwyn turned. He sat in a chair by the window, ankle crossed over knee, watching her with those impossible silver eyes. In the firelight, she saw him clearly for the first time. Tall, broad-shouldered, a face that was striking the way a fortress is striking, imposing, deliberate, built to endure. A pale mark ran from his left temple to the corner of his jaw, the kind earned, not given. Sleeves rolled to the elbows, forearms lined with old battle marks. He looked like a man who solved problems permanently. How long? She rasped. 7 hours. The physician confirmed malnutrition, dehydration, and moonsbane suppression. The moonsbane will take days to fully clear your system. I know what moonsbane is. Then you know it's been outlawed since the Blood Wars, which means whoever administered it committed a crime, punishable by execution in every territory north of the Ashvale River. She drank the water he poured for her, hands trembling around the cup. Why did you help me? She asked. I haven't decided if I was helping you or making a strategic decision. He returned to his chair. Tell me why Corvin Draith is starving his betrothed and dosing her with a war-era poison, and I'll figure out which one it was. She could lie, but Corvin had let her collapse on marble in front of an entire ballroom without a flicker of concern. He'd drugged her, starved her, and tonight, after the mating ceremony, he would have owned her silence permanently, sealed by a bond she could never break. There was nothing left worth protecting except the truth. He's trafficking omegas. The words came out flat, steady, steadier than she felt. Dozens of them, taken from border packs, runaways, orphans. He keeps them in cages beneath Ashenmore Manor, suppresses their wolves with moonsbane, and sells them to buyers across the Eastern Territories. I found the ledgers. Names, dates, amounts. All in his handwriting. Soren didn't move, but something shifted behind his eyes, something cold and vast, like watching a frozen lake crack from the inside. When I confronted him, she continued, he locked me in my room, starved me for 3 days, drugged my broth, then brought me to the ball to complete the mating so I'd be bound by pack law, unable to speak against my own alpha. And if you'd refused the bond? He never gave me the choice. The fire popped and hissed in the silence. He's right about one thing, Soren said finally. No one will believe an unbonded Omega with no pack standing against the heir of Ashenmore. The words stung. Elwyn looked away, jaw tight. But they would believe you standing beside me. She turned back. His expression hadn't changed. Still that controlled, predatory calm. But his eyes were locked onto hers with an intensity that made the air feel thinner. What are you saying? The Draith Pack has been poisoning the Northern Territories for a decade. Trafficking, blackmail, alliances built on intimidation. I've tried to dismantle them for years. They're too careful. They destroy every trail and silence every witness. He paused. Until you. I don't have the ledgers. Corvin does. But you've read them. You remember names, dates, buyers. You can describe the operation, the facility, and the cages. And who would listen to me? Every alpha in the Northern Territories, if the testimony comes from the bonded mate of their king. He let that settle. Mate me instead. The room lost its air. You can't be serious. A bond with me makes you untouchable. Corvin loses all claim. His family can't silence you or invoke pack law against you, and together, we tear them apart. This is insane. This is survival. Yours and theirs. His jaw tightened. There are Omegas in cages tonight, waiting to be sold. Every day we waste is another day they stay in chains. That landed. Hard. If I agree, Elowin said, forcing steel into her voice, I want your word. The Omegas come first. Not your politics. Not your revenge. Those wolves in cages get found, freed, and protected before anything else. Agreed. And I'm not a possession. This bond makes me your equal, not your property. I testify because I choose to. Something that might have been respect crossed his face. Agreed. Anything else? Yes. If I ever become a danger to you, if protecting me costs more than I'm worth, you let me go. That won't happen. Promise me anyway. He crossed the room and extended his hand. I promise. Do we have a deal? She looked at his hand. Scarred knuckles, calloused palm, steady as bedrock. The hand of a king who had just offered to make her the most protected Omega in the Northern Territories so they could destroy the wolves who caged the defenseless. 12 hours ago, she was locked in a room, starving, her wolf silenced, waiting to be mated to a monster. Now a different kind of dangerous was offering her a chance to fight. Elowin took his hand. We have a deal. His grip was warm, firm, and he held it one beat longer than necessary. Then eat everything on that table. He released her hand and moved toward the door. When the moon's bane clears and your wolf wakes, you're going to need your strength. He paused at the threshold. Your Majesty, she called. Why were you at the mating ball? You don't need a mate for power. A beat of silence. Something flickered beneath the surface, brief, unguarded. My council demanded I attend. Political stability requires an heir. He opened the door. I didn't expect to find my future queen on the floor. Then he was gone. Elowin sat alone with the firelight, the food, and the weight of what she'd just agreed to. She'd been starved, drugged, and paraded like property by a man who saw her as disposable. Now she'd tied her fate to a man who saw her as a weapon. She reached for the bread and ate. Slowly, deliberately, feeling strength return with every bite. Somewhere far south, in a border village called Ashwell, her mother and younger sister Nerissa had no idea what had happened tonight. If Elowin had any say in it, they'd never have to find out from Corvin. He thought hunger and Moon's bane had hollowed her into obedience. He had no idea that the Omega he tried to silence had just allied with the one wolf alive capable of tearing his empire apart. And she intended to help him do it. 2 days later, Elowin sat in a carriage bearing the Shadowmere crest, a silver wolf mid-howl against a black moon. Watching the Northern Territories unfold through frosted glass, the moon's bane still clung to her bloodstream like smoke trapped in a bottle. Her wolf stirred occasionally now, faint pulses of warmth where days ago there had been nothing. Coming back to life, in pieces. Soren rode alongside the carriage on a massive black destrier, checking the windows every half hour. Not hovering, patrolling. He'd arranged furs for her seat, hot broth in a sealed flask, salted meat wrapped in linen. He made sure she ate every 2 hours. He never asked how she felt. He simply ensured she had what she needed and kept moving. As dusk painted the sky in bruised violet, the road crested a ridge, and Shadowmere Keep revealed itself. It wasn't a manor, it was a mountain wearing a crown. Black stone walls scaled the cliffside in tiers, each level fortified with watchtowers and iron gates. The keep sat at the summit, sharp-edged against the sky, flanked by 2 vast wings that curved inward like arms waiting to close. Below, a frozen lake reflected the structure like a dark mirror. Everything about it whispered the same word: unreachable. "It's terrifying," she said when Soren appeared at the carriage door. "It's supposed to be." He opened the door. "My ancestors carved it from the mountain during the Wolf Sovereign Wars. Nothing has breached these walls in 400 years. Nothing will breach them now." He helped her down. The keep's iron gates groaned open and figures emerged. Dozens of them, lining the stone courtyard in disciplined rows. At their head stood a woman built like a sword, tall, lean, iron-gray hair pulled into a severe knot. "Your Majesty, welcome home." Soren nodded. "Thessaly, this is Elowyn Ashgrove. She'll be the Queen of Shadowmere within the fortnight. She's recovering from Moon's Bane poisoning and requires care." Thessaly's gaze swept Elowyn, cataloging everything. No pity. Something sharper. Recognition. "Welcome to Shadowmere, Miss Ashgrove. You'll find we do things differently here." "Differently how?" "We don't break. Follow me." The interior matched the exterior. Dark stone corridors, walls lined with weapons older than most bloodlines. Thessaly walked fast. Elowyn kept up through stubbornness alone. "His Majesty occupies the North Tower," Thessaly explained. "Your quarters are in the East Wing." The chambers were austere but vast, a sitting room anchored by a stone hearth, a bedroom with a canopied bed draped in silver furs, a bathing room fed by a natural hot spring channeled through the mountain. "Tutors begin tomorrow," Thessaly continued. "Pack law, territorial politics, court protocol, combat basics. You have 3 weeks before the Northern Summit. Your first public appearance as queen. 3 weeks to become a queen. 3 weeks to look like one. Being one takes longer." Thessaly paused at the door. "The king doesn't make careless decisions. If he chose you, he believes you can carry this. Don't waste that belief." After Thessaly left, Elowyn sank onto the bed. Through the window, the frozen lake caught the last light of day. Beyond it, the forest stretched south, toward Ashenmore Manor. Toward iron cages. A knock. A young attendant entered with a tray and a sealed envelope bearing the Shadowmere crest. "From His Majesty, miss," he said to read it tonight. Inside, angular handwriting. "Miss Ashgrove, the next 3 weeks will test you. I am not gentle, and I do not repeat instructions. These pages contain everything you need to understand about Shadowmere, its laws, its enemies, its expectations of a queen. Study them. We dine together each evening at 8. Be punctual. We'll coordinate our case against the Draiths and review your progress. Remember our agreement. You help me dismantle them. I keep you alive. Everything else, we'll figure out as we go." SV, she ate. Every bite, deliberately, feeling her wolf rise a fraction closer to the surface with each swallow. She'd been starved into silence by a man who called her little one. Now she sat in a mountain fortress, eating at the command of a king who expected her to become his equal. Somehow, that felt like the more honest kind of dangerous. The first 2 weeks carved Elowyn into something new. The tutors were thorough and unforgiving. She learned pack law until she could recite territorial sovereignty codes from memory. She studied the Draith family's alliances, a web of fear and debt stretching across 6 territories, until she could name every node and every weakness. She learned that Soren's father was assassinated by a rival pack later discovered to have Draith funding, that his mother, a rare alpha female, had died of a slow poison when he was 7. That no one was ever charged because the Draiths controlled the investigation. 2 parents, both taken, both trails leading to the same family. She understood his war now. It wasn't politics. It was grief sharpened into patience. Their evening dinners became the axis of her days. They sat at opposite ends of a table built for 30, the distance between them both practical and symbolic. "Tell me the buyers again," he said one evening, his fork untouched. "Halden Cray, Eastern Territories. Purchased 4 Omegas between spring and autumn. Maren Voss, freelance broker operating from the Ashvale borderlands. Handled transport. and a name I couldn't fully read. Something beginning with Kel, listed as the primary southern contact. Keldrin Marsh. Soren's voice went flat. He's the magistrate who ruled my father's death accidental. Their eyes met across the table, a shared understanding that needed no words, but it wasn't just strategy that shifted between them. It was the small fractures in his armor she hadn't expected. The night she woke screaming. Moon's bane nightmares, cages and cold and Corvin's smile. Soren was at her door within seconds, not entering, just his voice, through the oak. You're in Shadowmere, you're safe. Breathe. She pressed her forehead against the door and breathed. And somehow, knowing he was on the other side was enough. The morning her wolf finally broke through the moon's bane, a surge of heat and power and raw, howling fury that dropped her to her knees in the training yard. It was Soren who crouched beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder, his own wolf radiating a calm so deep it felt like bedrock. Let her come, he murmured. Don't fight it, she's been caged long enough. Her wolf erupted, not a full shift, but a roar of presence that shook the air, sent every wolf in the courtyard stepping back, and left Elwyn gasping on the stones, tears streaming, more whole than she'd felt in weeks. When she looked up, Soren was still crouched beside her. His hand hadn't moved. Welcome back, he said quietly. That night at dinner, she set down her glass and held his gaze. Let me do more than speak. Not as a witness you're shielding, as a partner. You don't know what that costs. I know what silence costs. I spent 3 days learning exactly what it tastes like. Let me fight beside you. A long pause. Then, slowly, he nodded. Together then. But you follow my lead. He extended his hand across the table, across all that deliberate distance. Welcome to the war, my queen. She shook it. His grip was warm, rough, lingering. The northern summit was still 10 days away when everything accelerated. A rider arrived from Lord Fenwick of Greymarch with an invitation to a private gathering. 8 days from now. 20 guests. High influence. The Draiths will be attending, Soren told Elwyn. They accepted because Greymarch is neutral ground. They feel safe there. His eyes sharpened. They don't know you're coming. Am I ready? We're about to find out. He turned to Thessaly. Arrange a formal dinner here in 3 days. 8 guests, Lord Aldrich and Lady Brenna of Ironholt, Elder Maeve of the Thornwall Pack, and 5 from my inner circle. Full protocol. A rehearsal, Thessaly said. A test. If she can hold this room, she can hold Greymarch. 3 days of controlled fire followed. The seamstress delivered gowns, dark fabrics, sharp cuts, nothing soft. Armor disguised as silk. The night of the dinner, Elwyn studied her reflection. A gown of midnight blue, cut to showcase the lean strength her body had rebuilt. A silver circlet, Soren's mother's, Thessaly had whispered while placing it. She looked like a queen. She didn't yet feel like one. A knock. Soren entered in formal black, silver crest at his throat. He stopped when he saw her. Something moved behind his eyes. Quick, unguarded, immediately controlled. That circlet suits you, he said. Is that your version of a compliment? It's my version of honesty. He offered his arm. Ready? No, but I'll do it anyway. The guests assessed Elwyn with the precision of wolves evaluating a newcomer's rank. Dinner unfolded like a chess match. She remembered every protocol, navigated every trap, and engaged Elder Maeve in discussion about Omega protection laws, a topic she genuinely cared about. Then Lady Brenna mentioned the disappearances. 3 more Omegas gone from the border packs last month. No bodies, no trails. They simply vanish. It's been happening for years, Elder Maeve added. Someone with power is protecting whoever's responsible. Elwyn chose her words with precision. Forgive me, Elder Maeve, but have the investigations ever looked at who profits from those disappearances? Omegas have value, particularly unbonded ones from packs with no political protection. If someone were treating them as commodities, the disappearances wouldn't be random. They'd follow a market. Silence. Then Elder Maeve set down her glass with a sharp click. I think the Northern Territories finally have a queen worth listening to. After the guests departed, Soren found her in the library, hands still trembling from adrenaline. You didn't just pass the test. You rewrote it. He poured himself a drink. Elder Maeve will be composing letters by morning. By the time we reach Greymarch, the border packs will be asking questions that lead directly to Ashenmoor. You planned this. You invited Elder Maeve because she has the most influence over the border territories. Every move I make is calculated. That's how wars are won. And what happens when we actually face the Draiths at Greymarch? Soren's expression hardened into something that looked like the mountain his keep was carved from. We tear them open. Greymarch Hall sat in a valley ringed by ancient oaks, neutral ground, built from pale stone that glowed amber in fading light. As their carriage descended, Elowyn spotted the banners: Fenwick's silver stag, Iron Holt's crossed axes, and there, snapping in the wind like a taunt, the crimson and black of Ashenmoor. Remember, Soren said. We arrive together. We observe. Let Corvin see you. Let him understand what you've become. Let him panic. The carriage halted. Elowyn stepped out wearing black, not mourning, but authority. Silver thread traced the Shadowmere crest along her bodice. The circlet from the rehearsal dinner sat above her brow. A queen's crown, earned in fire. She felt its weight like a reminder. You belong here now. The whispers ignited instantly. Is that the new queen? She came from nothing. She doesn't look like nothing. Look at the way Shadowmere watches her. As they followed Lord Fenwick through the corridors, Elowyn heard Corvin's voice from the drawing room. Easy, confident, and unsuspecting. Her step faltered. Soren's hand found the small of her back. Steady. Not yet. In their suite, the door barely closed before Elowyn gripped a chair. He's here, right now, in this house, laughing, while Omegas rot in his cages. I know. What if I freeze when I see him? Your wolf will do exactly what you tell her to do because you are her alpha now, not Corvin. Soren knelt before her, taking her hands. You survived Moon's Bane. You survived starvation. You survived becoming a queen in 3 weeks. You will survive seeing him. His grip tightened. And he's the one who should be terrified. When did you start believing in me? When you demanded I free the Omegas before anything else, before your own safety. His thumb traced her knuckle. Maybe before that? From the balcony, she watched Corvin by the fountain below, tall, golden-haired, a young Omega at his side. Another target? He had no idea. Tonight, he would learn. Dinner was an orchestration. 20 wolves, candlelight, crystal. Corvin sat with his father, Lord Draith, and mother, Lady Seren, his attention angled away from Elowyn. It was Fenwick who made the discovery inevitable. Lord Draith, I don't believe you've met Queen Elowyn of Shadowmere. Corvin looked up. His eyes found Elowyn. Every drop of color drained from his face. His wineglass slipped, red splashing across white linen like a wound. Forgive me, the queen reminded me of someone. How interesting, Soren said, his voice carrying. Do you know my wife, Lord Corvin? Lady Seren intervened smoothly. I don't believe we've had the pleasure. Thank you, Lady Seren, Elowyn said, though I believe your son and I have crossed paths. Dinner continued, but Corvin's eyes never left her. Calculating, panicked. Later, needing air, Elowyn stepped onto the terrace. The night was cold and sharp, the oaks casting long shadows across moonlit stone. She breathed deep, letting the chill steady her nerves. Footsteps behind her, deliberate. She knew who it was before he spoke. You should be dead. She turned. Corvin stood in the doorway, charms stripped away, something feral and furious beneath. He looked diminished out here, smaller than she remembered, meaner. And yet here I am. How? I gave you enough Moon's Bane to keep you silent for weeks. You should have been too far gone to speak by the time anyone noticed. Someone noticed immediately. Someone who recognized what Moon's Bane smells like and what starvation looks like. She held her ground. Unlike you, he chose to help. What did you tell him? Everything. You're bluffing. If you'd told him about the cages, he'd have moved against us already. Maybe he's building something unbreakable. She stepped toward him. You starved me. You drugged me. You would have bonded me against my will. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? I should have used a stronger dose. Yes, you should have. Soren stepped onto the terrace, positioning himself between them. But he didn't. And now she's beyond your reach. Beyond my reach? Corvin laughed, desperate. She's a cast-off Omega you dressed up in silk. She's the bonded queen of Shadowmere. She outranks every wolf in your bloodline. Soren's voice dropped to barely a whisper. And if you threaten her again, I won't dismantle your family through politics. I'll do it with my hands. Your family has buyers, Elowen said quietly, and every one of them is a thread I can pull. This isn't over, Corvin muttered, backing away. No, it's not. But it will be soon. After he disappeared inside, Elowen's hands started shaking. Soren turned to her, one hand steadying her shoulder. I didn't break. I think that counts. You were extraordinary. He studied her face, and something shifted in his expression. Not strategy, not assessment. Something unguarded. We need to be more careful now. Cornered wolves are the most dangerous kind. Good. Let him feel exactly what I felt in that locked room. Justice? He asked. Justice, not revenge. They walked back inside together. Lady Seren watched with venomous precision. Lord Draith's expression was thunderous. And across the room, Elder Maeve raised her glass toward Elowen. But what Elowen didn't know, what she wouldn't learn until it was almost too late, was that Corvin had already sent a rider south. And the message had nothing to do with politics and everything to do with her 14-year-old sister Nerissa, alone in the border village of Ashwell. Past midnight. Elowen couldn't sleep. She found Soren standing at the window of their suite's drawing room, staring at the moonlit valley. Couldn't sleep? He asked without turning. Can you? Not often. He turned to face her, and she saw something she'd never seen in him. The exhaustion of 12 years fighting alone. Soren, whatever happens tomorrow, I'm grateful you found me. Even if I was just strategy. Even if this bond was just a weapon. You were never just strategy. His voice was rough. Not since the moment you demanded I save those Omegas before I saved you. Then what am I? He set down his glass, crossed the distance, lifted her chin with fingers that were, for the first time, unsteady. You're the reason I remember why I started this fight. For the people who can't fight for themselves. I'd forgotten. You reminded me. She kissed him. Not a bonding ceremony's ritual, not a performance. This was the truth of what had been building since the night he stood outside her door and told her to breathe. His arms wrapped around her, gentle in a way that contradicted everything about his reputation. Her fingers traced the mark along his jaw. He made a sound. Low, raw, surprised, like something cracking open inside him. When they pulled apart, breathless, his silver eyes were wide with something that looked like wonder. That was not part of the plan, he said. Good. Your plans could use some disruption. A knock shattered the moment. Thessaly's voice, urgent. Your Majesty. A rider from Shadowmere. He read the letter. The softness vanished from his face. Corvin sent riders south, toward Ashwell, toward your sister. The floor tilted. Nerissa. She's only 14. I already have wolves in Ashwell. I positioned them the day after you told me about your family. He gripped her shoulders. My wolves are faster. Your sister and your mother will be at Shadowmere within 2 days under full guard. You planned for this before I even asked? I planned for every way he could hurt you. That's not strategy. His grip tightened. That's something I don't have a name for yet. Tomorrow, she whispered, we end this. Tomorrow, he agreed, we end them. Lord Fenwick arranged an afternoon gathering on the south lawn, all 20 guests, tables beneath the oaks. It would not be civil. Lady Seren struck first, materializing beside Alowan. Your Majesty, tell me, where did you and the king meet? The bonding was so sudden. Fate works quickly sometimes. How romantic. Forgive me, but you seem familiar. Corvin was courting an Omega from the border villages, but she vanished before the ceremony. So tragic. Vanished, Elowen repeated. What a gentle word for it. Soren appeared. Lady Seren, I hope you're not interrogating my queen. Just conversation, Your Majesty. Clearly. He guided Alowan away. By midday, the whispers she'd planted had reached Greymarch. Border pack disappearances. Omega trafficking. Follow the money. Ashenmoor. Then Lord Draith demanded a formal audience, accusing Alowan of being an imposter spreading lies. Fenwick agreed to hear both sides. Not a trial, a conversation. Let truth sort itself. Lord Draith stood first. This woman infiltrated our home, fabricated accusations, and then staged her own disappearance to generate sympathy. She has manipulated the Alpha King into a sham bonding to weaponize his authority against my family. Your Majesty, Fenwick said, you may respond. Elowen stood. Her wolf surged beneath her skin. Lord Draith is correct about one thing. I was in his home. But I didn't infiltrate anything. I took a wrong turn and found a corridor of iron cages. Cages holding drugged Omegas, their wolves suppressed with Moon's Bane. A substance outlawed since the Blood Wars. Gasps rippled through the crowd. That's a fabrication, Lord Draith snarled. Is it? Then explain why Moon's Bane was found in my bloodstream. Administered over 3 days while I was locked in a room at Ashenmoor. I was starved because I saw what I wasn't supposed to see. Drugged because I refused to stay silent. And brought to the mating ball half dead because Corvin needed the bonding to legally seal my mouth. She has no proof, Lady Seren cut in. Actually, Soren stepped forward, pulling documents from his coat. She has quite a lot. Physician's report confirming Moon's Bane poisoning. Bank records showing payments from Ashenmoor to known traffickers. And correspondence between Lord Draith and a buyer named Halden Cray, negotiating prices for 4 unbonded Omegas. He laid the documents before Fenwick. One accusation is gossip. This is a pattern. Those documents are forged. Then you'll welcome an investigation, Soren said. Shall I call for one? I welcome it, Elder Maeve rang out. 3 Omegas disappeared from my territory last autumn. 7 in 3 years, all unbonded, all from vulnerable families. I ordered my own investigation after the Queen's comments at Shadowmere. My trackers followed the scent trails. Every single one ended at the Ashenmoor border. Silence. Absolute. Devastating. Lies, Corvin burst out. She's poisoned them against us? Then explain this. A small voice from the edge. Everyone turned. A young Omega woman, barely 18, gaunt, trembling, wrapped in an oversized cloak. Beside her stood Thessaly. My name is Isla Wren. I was taken from my village 8 months ago, kept in a cage beneath Ashenmoor Manor. My wolf was suppressed with Moon's Bane. I was sold to a man in the Eastern Territories. She pulled down her collar, revealing a brand burned into the skin at the base of her neck. The Draith crest. They marked us, like cattle. The sound that moved through the crowd wasn't a gasp. It was a growl, low, collective, primal. I escaped 2 weeks ago, Isla continued. I walked for 6 days. I ate bark and snow. The king's wolves found me at the northern border, half dead and still running. She looked at Elowen, eyes glistening. They told me about you, about what you did. That's why I came, because if you could stand, so could I. Elowyn couldn't speak. Her throat was locked. Soren's hand found hers, anchoring her to the ground when everything in her wanted to cross the distance and hold the girl. Lord Fenwick, Elder Maeve's voice was granite. I move that the Draith delegation be removed immediately and a formal investigation opened. Seconded, Lord Aldrich called. Shadowmere presented evidence, Fenwick said, his genial mask gone. You presented denials. Escort the Draith party from Greymarch. As guards closed in, Corvin lunged toward Elowyn. Soren moved faster than any wolf could track. One hand caught Corvin's wrist, one twist brought him to his knees. You will never touch her again, Soren said, quiet as snowfall. And you will spend the rest of your life in a cage. See how it fits. The guards took Corvin. Lord Draith escorted out in silence. Lady Seren walked with her chin raised, hands shaking. Elowyn's knees buckled. Soren caught her. It's done, he murmured. You did it. We did it. She looked at him. And Isla, she came because you survived first. You stood first. His voice broke, just barely. You're not a weapon, Elowyn. You never were. You're a door. You opened it, and others walked through. Later, after the Allies, the whispered apologies, the shifting of an entire political landscape, they retreated to their suite. Your sister and mother arrived at Shadowmere this morning, Soren said. Safe. Thessaly sent word before the gathering. Relief hit like a wave breaking. You kept every promise. I told you I would. She looked at him, stripped of every strategic mask. When did this stop being a bargain? He sat beside her. The night you woke screaming and I stood outside your door wishing I had the right to open it. His voice was raw. I've spent 12 years fighting alone, treating every relationship as a variable. You broke the equation. You were supposed to be untouchable. I was. And then you touched me anyway. Not with strategy, but with the kind of courage I'd forgotten existed. He turned to look at her. You make every alliance stronger because you make me stronger. How could I not love that? She took his face in her hands and kissed him. A choice, not a contract. A beginning, not a bargain. When they pulled apart, he pressed something into her palm. A ring, silver, set with a single moonstone that caught the candlelight like captured starfall. My mother's, he said. She told my father it represented clarity, seeing someone fully, scars and strength alike. You're the first person who's ever seen all of me and stayed. I'm not going anywhere. She let him slide the ring onto her right hand. I love you, she said. I didn't plan to. I was too busy surviving. But somewhere between the Moon's Bane and the War Council, it happened, and I'm not taking it back. Good. Because I have no intention of letting you. 6 months later, the east wing of Shadowmere Keep had transformed. Where once there were empty chambers, there were now dormitories, a kitchen, a classroom, a healer's quarters, and a training yard. The Shadowmere Omega Sanctuary housed 37 wolves, refugees from trafficking networks, runaways from abusive bonds, Omegas learning they were more than what had been done to them. Thessaly approached one morning with a ledger. 4 more applications this week, Your Majesty. Then we build faster. His Majesty already approved the expansion. His exact words, give the Queen whatever she needs and don't bother me with the cost. A knock at the sanctuary door. A young woman, perhaps 20, well-dressed but hollow-eyed in a way Elowyn recognized intimately. Your Majesty, my name is Ravenna Draith, Corvin's cousin. There are others, not just the Omegas in the cages. Women he courted, used, discarded over years. I found letters my uncle had hidden, testimonies he'd paid to suppress. How many? At least 12. I'll find them. Everyone. Your family tried to destroy me. They failed. And now we make sure they can never destroy anyone else. That evening, they hosted a small gathering. Lord Aldrich, Lady Brenna, Elder Maeve, Thessaly, and Elowin's sister Nerissa, now 15 and fierce, training with the sanctuary wolves like she'd been born to it. To the queen, Elder Maeve toasted, who reminded the northern territories that the smallest wolf can bring down the tallest tree. To the wolves who survived, Elowin corrected, and to the ones still fighting. Later, in the garden, snow began to fall, soft, quiet, the same kind that had dusted the night of the mating ball. The night she'd collapsed on marble, the night a king had lifted her from the floor and refused to let go. "Do you think about it?" she asked. "That night at the ball?" "Every day. What would have happened if I'd arrived 5 minutes later? If I'd assumed someone else would help? But you didn't." "No." And everything changed. He turned her to face him, snowflakes catching in her hair. "You were lying on the floor of a ballroom, starving, drugged, and alone. And you still had fire in you. I felt it the moment I lifted you. This furious, stubborn refusal to disappear." He cupped her face. "I didn't save you that night, Elowin. I just gave you a reason to save yourself. You gave me more than that. A home. A fight. A partner." She kissed him softly. "A love I didn't know existed. It almost didn't. My council had to argue for 3 days to get me into that carriage. Then I owe your council a debt. I'll tell them. They'll be insufferable about it." She laughed, real, full, the sound of a woman who had learned that joy was not something taken permanently, only something you had to fight your way back to. They stood there in the falling snow, the king and the Omega who'd been left to break. Two wolves who found each other in the worst moment and built something neither had planned, but both had needed. She'd fainted from hunger at the mating ball. He'd lifted her from the cold marble floor, and he'd never let go. Not when it was strategy, not when it became something more, and not now, when it was simply, impossibly, love. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story stirred something in you, the hunger for justice, the power of being chosen when you've been thrown away, the fierce courage it takes to stand when the world expects you to stay down, I hope you'll share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling us your favorite moment and where you're listening from. If you're ready for another story where survival becomes strength and love finds you when you least expect it, subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the next chapter. You are the reason these stories exist. Thank you for being here, for listening, for believing that even in the darkest moments someone might just lift you up and never let go.